Welcome back, Gale Force. Today I thought we'd do something a little bit different from the norm, but still not super far off. And I wanted to discuss what I believe to be every promotable unit in Sacred Stones' best promotion path. So, without any further ado, we'll just jump right into it. So, starting with Cormag here, you could go either way, honestly. Wyvern Lord and Wyvern Knight both have some good gains for him. Wyvern Knight gains Pierce, Wyvern Lord grants him swords. Uh, Wyvern Lord has a slightly higher strength cap, and Wyvern Knight is a bit faster, but Wyvern Lord has one more point of con. Generally, I don't think Pierce is so worth it that you shouldn't go Wyvern Lord over it, but ultimately that's up to player's choice. It kind of comes down to whether you value the extra points of speed that Wyvern Knight gets over having that control of the weapon triangle. Next, we've got Tana over in Wyvern Knight. I think that generally you're going to want to promote one of either Tana or Vanessa to Wyvern Knight so that the other will go into Falcon Knight and you can still perform the triangle attack. I know it's very niche, but usually it's still a fun thing people like to have access to. If you're not going to do that, then I would recommend promoting both of them into Wyvern Knights. But if you're choosing just one to promote into Wyvern Knight, then I believe that you should promote Tana, as her stats are more combat oriented than Vanessa's generally are anyway. This one, fairly self explanatory. Every single Cavalier should go into Paladin. It's the better option between that and Great Knight. Great Knight has a few things going for it. Gaining axes is really, really nice, but all three Paladin candidates will really benefit from the extra 2 points of movement, which is huge. And of course, not being considered an armored unit, which means, unlike Great Knights, they don't take effective damage from hammers, which is it's quite nice. But yeah, all of them should go into Paladin. Shouldn't even be a question. Um, then we have our sole Great Knight candidate here, who I think Gilliam does. I think he does a great job in Great Knight. I think he does a better job in Great Knight than he does in general. Do I think he's bad in general? No, not at all. But I do think that that extra point of movement can really take the early game Gilliam, who can do quite well if you put enough love into him, into someone who can keep up with the rest of your army on promotion fairly easily. And outside of the desert maps and outside of going against hammers, which you would be dealing with as a problem anyway, even if you promoted in general, I think that this just does more for him overall. Amelia going into general, I think, is a generally agreed upon fun choice for the community, but I actually objectively am convinced now that it is the best choice. I think her other option really is going into Cavalier and then going into Paladin from there. And that is one of her better options, but it does not do much in favor for her of her defense or her strength. General, on the other hand, makes her fairly solid defensively thanks to the promotion gains, and she will be a very, very fast general as well. So she still won't be moving very far, but she will be a rare situation where tiny girl move fast in giant suit of armor. Uh, there's really nothing that you can do to make Amelia a good unit, but general is probably the place where she'll end up closest to decent. Uh, Ross, if you're gonna use him, you should probably promote him into a berserker. I don't like saying that. I think it's his best class. I don't like saying that because I believe that you should use the Ocean Seal to promote Calm into an assassin, personally, and we'll get to that later. But if you are going to use the Ocean Seal on Ross, then yes, he should go down the pirate path and become a berserker. Hands down, his best option. That huge crit bonus makes him a menace. Otherwise, alternative option, you can either send him into warrior or hero, and I would recommend making him into a hero. It does more for his overall stats than Warrior does, and gaining swords is a significant boon in terms of accuracy versus bows, which I mean are also great for accuracy purposes, but suffer from only being a player phase option most of the time. Garcia, same reason you're going to want to send him into hero. Bows are really, like a useful tool for sure, but not as good as having access to swords, which potentially allow you to do more on enemy face. I believe personally that both Naomi and Garrick should go into Ranger. You'll notice that Sniper is not up here because that is something that only Naomi can promote into, and I don't think that it is her better option. Ranger gives Naomi access to swords, and it gives Garrick access to bows, but more importantly, both of them will gain a pony. So they will be up to, I believe, 7 move. Correct me if I'm wrong. It might be 6, but I believe it's 7. Um, this gives them Canto. It gives them the ability to rescue drop, and Naomi will gain the ability to enemy phase with swords, which is really, really nice. Does a lot for her statistically that her other option just doesn't. And for Garrick, he's already set statistically in terms of what he'll want to do. So in this case, just having that little bit of extra option for him there with the mount is just a really nice bonus for him. You can't really go wrong if you promote him into a hero. He'll still be perfectly fine. He'll still be really good. In fact, I mean, gaining access to axes and being able to use hand axes is a really helpful tool for him. But personally, I think the mobility factor and ability to rescue drop from the ranger, as well as potentially, if you want to, training him up enough that you can use longbows will allow him to attack at 3 range every once in a while. I think that that outweighs what hero does for him because for the most part he will be using swords if he goes into hero anyway, because by the time you get him you're not going to be doing as much fighting against non-monster enemies. Then we have both Ewan and Null as summoners. This should be fairly obvious if you've played the Sacred Stones. Having the ability to create more units, no matter what the stats of the class might say otherwise, having the ability to bring more units onto the field is an insane, insane power. Even if they only have 1 HP, it doesn't matter. Gaining access to essentially fodder units that you can use as bait, that you can use to weaken foes. It's a beautiful tool, and it keeps all of your actual units that you want to use otherwise totally safe. So promoting both of those two into summoner is, in my opinion, the only real viable option. You could go into, oh, what are they called? You could go into, why can't I remember the promotion path? Druid. You can go into Druid for Null if you really wanted to. He'll still be Null, he'll still be shaky, but I think Summoner really kind of fixes that issue for him. Meanwhile, Ewan, he's the pupil, and if you're going through all the effort to train him up, you're probably going to want to go to level 10 as a, what is the base one called? What is the base one called? Shaman. You want to go to level 10 as a shaman in order to quickly promote him from there to summoner, just so that he can actually do something and be viable, because summoner is very viable, but you and otherwise, with the amount of time it would take to level him up and how late he comes in the story, he's not going to be doing a whole lot for you. So I think summoner, best option for both of them by far. Probably the strongest class in the game in terms of what it offers, and it's unfortunately locked to 2 of the otherwise worst units in the game. Then we have La Rochelle and Loot as Mage Knights. Again, the mobility factor really can't be understated here. La Rochelle could also turn into a Valkyrie, but between the two, Mage Knight starts you off with a higher spell level, whereas Valkyrie gets access to D Light. Mage Knight gets access to C Anima. So between the two, it just makes more sense to go into Mage Knight. Um, Loot Loot can go into Sage, and she'll be fine as a Sage. It has better stat gains, but they're only really marginally going to matter unless you're caring about the Link Arena. And while she does gain weakness to the Horse Slayer, that again really only comes up in the Link Arena. So it is better, in my opinion, in general, to just promote her into a Mage Knight, get the mobility out of both of them. Uh, Kanto, really good. The ability to rescue drop other units, really good. Just a very handy class for both of them to have access to. And while La Rochelle can definitely do fine as a Valkyrie, just gaining access to a higher level of magic off the bat for going to Mage Knight makes more sense to me than going into Valkyrie and having D Light when you're already going to have probably either Mulder or Arter or Natasha or both of these two or even all three if you're feeling frisky as bishops already who are going to use light magic way better. Speaking of which, that's what we're going to talk about now. These three are potentially the most powerful units in the game because of the Slayer skill. Slayer lets you deal effective damage against monsters with light magic, and that's what bishops use. So they tear enemies to shreds. Mulder doesn't even need to have that high of a magic in order to do it, and he does not have that high of magic, but he is tankier than the other two options here. Arter and Natasha also perform just fine. Arter has the other option of being a Sage, and Natasha has the other option of being a Valkyrie, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but either way, gaining access to Slayer pretty much just allows them to shred through enemies. So while they may not be the toughest units around, between their ability to just tear through late game and their ability to heal, it makes perfect sense to me, at least, to put them in Bishop. They don't really need to do anything else outside of that class line. The only reason I can really think of to not put one of them into Bishop is to uh, just make Arter look a little cooler. Because he does look cooler in Sage, but I think he is objectively better in Bishop. Then we have our Assassins. So you may think that Marissa should go into Swordmaster, but hear me out. The reason Marissa should go into Assassin is because she is awful. She joins really late, like the same time as Ewan late. And she does not offer much to your team. She comes extremely low level for that time period. It makes it difficult for her to contribute at all. Probably the worst unit in the game. Uh, the only reason I can think of to use her at all is if you decide to put her into Assassin, because then she can make use of lockpicks, which makes her a very unoptimized thief, but one that can nonetheless pick a few locks at endgame, which is more than she would otherwise really be able to contribute to your team. So that's why I would say put Marissa in Assassin. As for Colm, much better Assassin, comes significantly earlier and should be your primary candidate for an Assassin if you want one. His other option, of course, is Rogue, but you get Renak later on, and Renak can fill that role totally fine. So at what point you recruit Renak, that is the exact moment that you should promote Colm with the Ocean Seal into an Assassin, because from that point forward, he will not be needing to steal anything, because you will just leave it up to Renak. And then finally, of course, we have the obvious choice for Swordmaster in Joshua over here. He is either going to become this or an assassin, and between the two, it's fairly obvious that with Colm being an early option for an assassin, there's no real need to send Joshua into it when he gets a significant crit bonus instead by going into Swordmaster. It only makes sense to me to send him down a path that he's already excelling on and to just allow that to continue to blossom. He won't be overly exceptional in either one, but that's mostly due to him being sword locked. Statistically, he'll be fine. So that's pretty much my list. I'll go show it from top to bottom once again here. And yeah, hopefully this helped you guys out. And if you liked it, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All that good stuff. You know the drill. But yeah, I'll see you guys next video. Thanks.